Today I'm going to be continuing on with more ACT practice questions. These questions I'm going to look at today, I think I'm going to look at just two. It's going to basically be geometry-based type questions. All right. So geometry-based type questions on the ACT. All right, so what I did was I went ahead and put this same diagram from the problem in the book into my software. As you can see, I have a circle inside of my square, and the question wants to know what is the area of the square. This is actually like a 10-second problem, all right? 10-second problem, you can get the problem done in like 10 seconds or less. The main thing is you got to know what your parts of a circle is and squares, and you got to know a couple of facts. Based on what we're looking at a radius. So that means all the way across is 12, and therein lies your answer. So the measurements for this square is a 12 by 12, and 12 times 12 is 144. That's your answer. 12 times 12 equals 144. And there it is. 12 times 12 is 144. If you know some of your basic facts, a lot of this stuff isn't as complicated as the question may lead you to believe. So you have to have some confidence in your own knowledge, and you just have to have a little faith that, you know, if the rules say something is true, that's exactly what it is. I've never been in a situation where a mathematical formula or some type of mathematical equation contradicted itself. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen something be true at one point and then turn around and be false later. All right, so that's one of those main things that we have to kind of lean on when we talk about mathematics is the logic is solid. All right, the logic is solid. All right, another geometry type of question on ACT. This is almost guaranteed to sit here every single time. There will be a distance question in some shape, form, or fashion. All right, there will be a distance question. So here we go. All right, the good thing about taking this standardized test in particular is they do give you a formula sheet. So any formula that you may need to use will be sitting on that sheet. The question is, do you know what those formulas mean? Do you know how to use them? So I will write down the formula for the distance formula, but that's not really the way that I teach it or as far as like executing. All right, so I'm going to write down what the formula says, but I'm going to show you a much quicker way to get to that same solution. So here's the distance formula. D is equal to the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. That's a lot of stuff right there. For me, that's not a lot, but for the average user, they're looking at this and they're like, man, oh my goodness, how am I going to get this question correct? So I'm going to kind of remix how we going to go through it, and then you'll see how much better or how much easier this will be. All right. What I like to do is I like to line up my points one on top of the other, and then I do some marks right next to it. So from 0 to 7 is 7 spaces, all right? From 2 to 0 is 2 spaces. Like, it really doesn't matter if you're going up or down, if those answers are negative or positive, not with the distance, because distance doesn't care about the sign. Distance is just a distance, all right? So from 0 to 7, that's 7 spaces. From 2 to 0, that's 2 spaces. I take that and I basically run a Pythagorean theorem. I say 2 squared plus 7 squared is equal to d squared, which gives me a 4 plus 49 is equal to d squared, and 4 plus 49 is 53. That's equal to d squared. And then all I do is take the square root on both sides. So the answer would say square root of 53 is equal to d. And that's your answer right there. Square root of 53 is equal to d. Now, that technique that I showed you is very useful. The only way you'll mess up on that problem is if you don't have a clear understanding of your integers. All right. This one made more sense because I didn't have any negative numbers to deal with. If I had negative numbers to deal with, you have to really think about making that calculation on each side before you move forward. All right. So I'm going to just make up a problem similar to that one, but this time I'm going to make sure I have some negative numbers in it. So, for example, if you were to do a problem similar to this one and you needed to find the distance between these 2 points, once again, we're going to look at these numbers and tell the distance between them two. Remember, that's a -4 all the way up to a +12. If you're not careful, you're going to write an 8. All right, if you're not careful, you're going to look at that 12, you're going to look at that -4, and just say 8. But the real answer is 16 because you're 4 below 0. So not only do you have to go from a negative all the way over to the positive, if you're counting all that up, that's 16 spaces total. So we're talking about 16 spaces, all right? The distance between those two numbers is 16. Now, if I come over here, the distance between these two numbers, if you're not careful, you'll look at that and say -6. But no. Once again, this is 5, and you're dropping all the way down to a -11. So you drop 5 spaces, that gets you to 0. You drop 11 more. You get what I'm saying? So from here to here happens to be 16 spaces also. That's also 16 spaces. So if I do 16 squared plus 16 squared is equal to d squared, I'll just do that just like I did the Pythagorean theorem. All right, so if I do 16 squared plus 16 squared is equal to d squared, that gives me a 256 plus a 256 is equal to d squared. 256 plus 256 is 512. That's still equal to d squared until I take the square root. Now I have d is equal to square root of 512. Now, 9 times out of 10, that won't be one of your answer selections because they may simplify it or you may have to turn it into a decimal. So I'm not going to get into that part of it right now. I just want to make sure we understand how to grab the number of spaces, do the Pythagorean theorem, get the distance. All right. It's way less confusing than knowing where these numbers should go. All right. This works, but if you get confused on your X's and Y's, you're already going down the wrong path. Hope that helped. I'll probably do a couple of more ACT practice types of videos over the next few days. And then just keep practicing. Just find problems on the internet, pull up practice questions, and just give them a try. Do it by topic if you need to. If there's something that you start to catch on to and you start getting the hang of it, find more problems just like those until you feel like you've mastered that one particular skill. The main goal is as you're learning how to do things in math, it's hard to master everything at one time. But what you can do is the ones that kind of come easier to you, master those. And then you can get back to something that may have taken you a little bit longer. And then you can start to master those too.